All right, y'all, it's Brother Will, aka Quiet Storm, and I'm back for week 4 of the 52-week challenge. We still talking about God's comfort zone. Last week, I was talking about, a spiritual aspect of being in God's comfort zone. And what I mentioned is that this week, I was going to tell a story or a couple situations that happened to me that showed the benefit of being in God's comfort zone in more like a tangible, physical way. All right, so check it out. First story. Well, I'm gonna start off by saying this: two things, really, it's three things that I don't worry about, but two things that I'm gonna talk about today that I never worry about. That's one is food, and number two is money, because I'm gonna always get them some kind of way. God's gonna take care of me. He says, "Never have I seen the righteous forsaken, or a seed begging for bread." So, I don't worry about those things. But those just happen to be the two examples that I'm going to speak to you about of how, how God blessed me and show you how I benefited from being in God's comfort zone, just by listening to Him. All right, so first, real quick story I'm going to tell you about is I'm going to talk about the food, God providing food for me. Now, took a vacation day one day. This is probably a few years back, summertime, and I'm riding down the street in Greensboro, North Carolina. I'm riding down Bessemer Avenue, heading towards Summit. So as I'm riding, I'm riding up Bessemer, and I'm thinking to myself, like, man, I want me some Church's chicken. So, and and Church's was right there. It was right there, and I could have turned on and went and got my chicken right then. But it was like God was saying, my spirit, man, He was speaking to me saying, hey, nah, don't get no chicken. Just head towards the house. Just go home. Don't worry about it. So I was like, okay. I was in tune at that time. I don't always follow that. I don't always follow the spirit. Keep it real. Especially when it comes to food and eating. I'm like, when I'm hungry, I'm ready to eat right then. But anyway, this particular day, I went on and drove to the house. So on my way home, I was passing by this church, which is right down the street from my house. And then I felt the spirit nudge again and said, well, hey, just stop by that church. There's people there. They may be having a prayer meeting or something, and you can just go in there and get some prayer or whatever. He says, he just told me to stop. So I pulled in, walked in, greeted the people. Some old ladies. They were in there like making pillows and stuff. They were making pillows for like cancer patients and stuff like that. That was, I guess, the ministry that they were doing, volunteer work. So I said, hey, I was just riding down the street. I felt God told me to just come in here and see what y'all were doing. Maybe, y'all have a prayer meeting. She was like, oh, the old ladies, they came in, and, when I walked in, they was like, okay, well, hey, come on in. Yeah, we'll pray for you. They went and prayed for me and said, hey, you want something to eat before you leave? I was like, no, I'm good. But what you got? And they said, well, we got some chicken. And when I looked over there, it was a big old box of Church's chicken. They had chicken and biscuits, and they had like, I don't know, at least about 4 or 5 of the big boxes. So they're like, hey, take as many as you want, So just by following the spirit, I was able to not only get the chicken free, but it was going to be more than what I would have purchased. So I got like 4 or 5 pieces of chicken. I got about 3 or 4 thighs, like 3 thighs and a drumstick, and got some biscuits and all this stuff. Came home, ate good. You know what I'm saying? So that's the first example of, how God had taken care of me in that situation, being in that comfort zone. Second example, I'm going to hit you real quick, comes to money. And this is a simple thing. It was a storm one day. It was, raining. The wind was blowing real hard. And I was just at my house, was talking to one of my buddies on the phone, right? And while I was out there on the phone, the spirit was just saying, well, hey, just go outside on the porch. So I was like, it's storming out there, a bunch of rain or whatever going on. So I'm not going out there. I'm just sit right here and talk. But Spirit was like, nah, go ahead. So I was like, all right. I followed it this time, the second time. Went on out there, and I wasn't out there talking on the phone more than about 15 to 20 seconds. And a neatly folded $20 bill blew up from off the street, up my driveway, and literally came up to my porch. You know what I'm saying? And I was like, wow. I'm just like, all I could say was thank you, Lord. You know what I'm saying? And that was just for me. I didn't necessarily need it at the time, but he was just teaching me a lesson of obedience and being in this comfort zone. All right, so I have 2 quick stories. Don't know what we'll be on next week. We may stay on the God's comfort zone. We may move on to something else. But I definitely thank y'all taking the time to listen. All right, God bless.